Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Bring John or anything up. Early fall. All right, pretty easy agenda, Daniel, especially events of 22.
So I wanted to talk to you guys about this in a committee of the whole before it comes to you guys, or if it comes to you guys in the council meetings. Currently, chapter 22 is shows and amusement. Which if you look at the first couple pages is the actual ordinance. It just includes the portion that's stricken through. So I am proposing almost an entirely, or really an entirely new chapter. But I want to talk about this because it's a little bit different than what we've done in the past. It's something that I have struggled with a little bit since coming to Blissfield because I don't have that institutional and historical knowledge of all of the events and the things that happened. And while it is getting easier, and not just for me, but other staff members, there's still some disconnect with communication. So a lot of this is being proposed because I want to make sure that when people, organizations, whether it's the village, whether it's an outside nonprofit or anybody wants special events or services from the village, that those are being very, very clearly communicated. The other reason that I want to bring this up, and we'll get into a little bit more too, is that we are always looking at our budget, I think, as a whole and across the board. And like, for example, we've talked about the impact of the River Raisin Festival, which is the largest non-village event or impact that we have. But we're starting to get more and more requests, and we're starting to see a lot of impact that it's like, oh, it's $100 here or it's $200 here, but over time, all of that starts to add up and does take I guess an impact to our budget or hit to our budget. And it can be anything from we have scholarship nonprofit organizations that want to hang up a banner. Well, that's DPW renting or using the lift truck. And then who pays for that? Because they're not a village entity. Or we have, let's say, a parade, and they want to do, and I'm gonna just call out random things. I'm not saying these people have done it, but let's say the senior parade, we don't have a route, we don't have, if they need road closures, and that's not communicated. Where this process, I'm hoping to streamline it and make it uniform and the same for everybody. So a lot of other communities do this. This has been fully reviewed by the staff and the legal departments. But I guess I want to get some feedback from you guys specifically. So when it comes to the ordinance, we'll start with that first, and then part of this is going to be the actual application itself. And we'll talk about that after I kind of go through the process. At any point, you guys stop me if you have questions or concerns too. So I want this to be for any like special requests or special events. So again, it doesn't matter if it's as little as hanging a banner, or maybe it's a softball tournament and they're using Ellis Field in the pavilion there. And what services do they expect or need from the village, which will be outlined in the application. I do have approval would be required, so they've got to submit this before the special event or whatever it is that they're asking for. The application, which it just kind of outlines it in the ordinance, but again, is more detailed here. And then it goes into considerations for issuance or denial. So what I'm proposing, and we can change this, is that village operated events will still be required to do this application, but if it's within the budget, then I have the authority to sign off on this and approve it. What I would do if this all goes forward is, let's say it's the DDA wine around and she fills out this application. I would approve it because it's a budgeted event and she's already got the authority to do it. And then I would put this on the council agenda just under presentations and communications. So then you all in the public have the exact same information I do. And you can very clearly see that they're requesting road closures, or that Main Street from Jefferson to 223 will be closed for that event, or they want to be on the digital sign, or whatever their requirements are, or they're gonna have a band for that event, so that you guys have general information. If it's a co-sponsored event, then what I would like is it would be reviewed. Also, I should say this right from the beginning, I'm saying approval by me. If DDA Wine Around is asking for barricades, I'm not just gonna approve this without talking to staff. So we do right now meet twice a month with staff. I would either bring it up then and or if I needed to get it to them sooner, I would do so, but the application does say 30 days notice, so we should have plenty of time to talk about it. So I don't want you guys to think I'm just like, yeah, we're gonna do this and not talking to anybody. Co-sponsored events, I said would be reviewed by the village administrator and staff, so, and then approved by council, so. And we'll talk about co-sponsored is defined in the application, so co-sponsored events would be where if the village council determines it's in the best interest for the public and helps with our public image, that we can co-sponsor that event and pay a portion of the cost of that event. So for example, we may want to consider the Memorial Day Parade being a co-sponsored event. That is not a village operated parade. We don't budget for it. However, general public interest, that parade has been around for a very long time. It's, I think, an overall, it's just me personally, good parade. So we may, as council, you can approve that application and say, yes, we're willing to do that. We know we're gonna have DPW overtime to put these barricades out on the holiday. We're good taking their, absorbing that cost or funding that and co-sponsoring that event. So that's an example, again, not saying it has to be Memorial Day Parade, just trying to give it.
So, but in the past, then what would have happened is that the expectation simply would be that the village would go ahead and prepare the preparation as well as the closure, as well as the, right. Understand.
But and again, maybe that event is co-sponsored, so, but then at least it's very clear what what the committee's expectations of the village are and what we plan to do or for that event, and then what's that cost tied to that?
So the co-sponsor, when you're saying the co-sponsor, it's with the village and someone else. That's what.
Correct.
That's
Yes.
we're reading code.
Correct.
Where's your
Yes.
30-day request at?
20.
Yeah, I'd say
I mean, it's 20.
What is it, 20?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
I get it.
20 days, I did this week.
that's-
And we can change any of this, I mean, again, this is a discussion, so. One, you guys can be like, yeah, we don't even wanna do this, and that's fine. But if you do, we can make changes to this. So other events I said would be, granted by myself, and the reason I'm saying that is because other events would be. And this is where we need to have some conversation too. I've said nonprofit events can get up to $100 in village labor and related fringe benefit costs. Anything above and beyond that, the event would have to pay for. Or the organization would be responsible for that cost. So my thought here was that they get up to the $100, anything more than that, we would recoup that cost and bill them. So I would do similar to village run events where we would look at this, review it, make sure we have the capacity to do it, and then I would put it under communications. Again, thank you for the corrections, 20 days, not 30. And then I do have some denial processes
With
here.
your other events, just asking since you're talking about that section, usually we could use $100 number.
I actually said 200 and staff was like, oh, that's too high. So staff and I, we all talked and we did the $100. So if you calculate wages and benefits, that's about 2 hours of labor.
Okay. So $100 would be about 2 hours.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's how you.
And I think that was kind of staff's, they're like, that's
I
2
wouldn't even get a
hours, which
bucket
is,
truck and
yeah.
you guys, so I mean, like, if you're hanging a banner, that's literally, you're already over that. That's.
Yes,
Well, that's where we
Quick.
go over.
I think
right. So
200 may be a little bit more reasonable.
but they can do it, we'll do it, they'll just, they would be responsible, so if the cost
For the
is
additional.
$225, they're gonna be billed $125.
And that's for an event that's not co-sponsored.
That's for just.
Correct, that is non-village, not co-sponsored event. So if they want it to be co-sponsored, they have the ability to request or apply
And then we.
for it to be, and then you guys are gonna say, no, this is another event. Here, I mean.
So like Memorial Day parade, you would consider co-sponsored event because
Only
it's.
we go ahead and say it's okay.
Right, you would have to approve it as a co-sponsored event.
Back, Charlie, for village operated events, the first one, the village will fund the full cost of the events with sponsorships. Technically, that doesn't always happen, right? I mean, sometimes it comes out of general fund or. I mean, right, it's not always sponsored or paid by sponsorship. That would be more like a DEA thing.
Yeah, but like, some of them, most of them are, but we could clarify that and maybe say the village will fund the full cost of these events, period, which may include sponsors or
Yeah,
something.
because again, it's not really being a sponsor.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Ordered, Uber Eats and their delivery.
I have a question.
Okay, I thought I was.
It was fine, sorry.
Okay. What's your question?
Have you and the staff like looked at the calendar already to see what we already do and where what we've done in the past year or two? How they would fall under these village operated events, co-sponsored, by the way, it's sponsored, it's sponsored. Which I guess it could germinate, you know, it could be both.
That perfect sense.
Sorry, things that jump out at me, they really do, they just jump out, I laugh, we
We've
go.
all looked at this 100 times and.
Start thinking when it's junior higher again. Nope.
So we have not in detail looked at them, so I actually brought this up to staff. It had to have been early 2022. And I was frustrated at that time because this event that was longstanding in Blissfield had zero communication. And then the day before called us and they're like, well, you're gonna put extra trash cans and barricades and we need cones and we need this, and had never reached out to a single staff member about it prior to that. And I said to them, it is the day before the event, and this was on a weekend, it was after hours, like we had not scheduled it. And they go, well, you've always done it for us. So I was frustrated and I'm like, okay, this is great, but I knew, I have no, there's no like magic calendar that lists all of these events. And so I called Brent, who is wonderful, and he's like, oh yeah, we normally do blah, 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 but I didn't hear from anybody this year. He did it, it was fine, but I'm like, okay, these people gotta communicate with us.
But then it also.
So I brought it up. Right, so I brought it up then, and at that time, staff, I will say, was like, well, what we're doing kind of works, you know, we, like, some of us know. And I said, okay, I'm gonna try it your way for a while, and we did that, and we continued to have these same issues. So then I brought this back to them. Where are we in May? It had to have been like end of last year, and I'm like, okay, guys, we tried it your way. But we're still seeing these issues with, and not, some of our event committees are on it and they contact us right away, but then, like I said, we have others that it's just enough.
I think it should always be clear communication. Period.
Yes, and they can reuse this, so like if, I'm gonna pick on Laura because she has so many events. So if Laura does this for her wine around, like next year, just reuse it and update the dates and make sure nothing has changed. Like I don't necessarily need her to provide us some elaborate, extravagant plan, but at least communicate what's going on. Was my thought. And then as I got more into the budget, like we built some things to municipal improvement. And I guess this is the other thing is I feel like the public should know that taxpayer dollars are going towards that event or program, because ultimately it's their money that is or is not funding that. So if the public is saying, we want you to hang every banner that's ever requested, we will do that. I have no problem doing it, but I want to make sure they understand they're paying for that through their taxes.
I think it's a great idea, well, I just wondered if you started that, because we'd have to do something, whenever this we put this into
Effect.
our effect, yeah, thank you. Then the first one to bump up against it is going to be the guinea pig. And they're going, why do we did have to do this before? And, you know, just, so I'm just wondering if you might have said, okay, we've got 12 items that go in the first one, 14 in the second one, and maybe 3 or 4 that fall under other events where they would pay for everything. And that we would then be able to let them know ahead of time if possible.
Like, starting this date, these are you're responsible for your events.
So I would like to, like, let's say that you guys are good with this and we get it all worked out and it comes to you guys for approval in July, let's say. I actually would like to put it in effect January 1 of 2026. Because that's a new calendar year and that gives us a period to put this out. And educate people, reach out specifically to River Raisin Festival, to Laura, and Laura's already very aware of this, but to the Memorial Day Parade people, anybody that's requested in the past and say, hey, starting January 1, this is gonna be the process, so you need to be ready, you can't come to us the day before and request these services. I guess to your question about the co-sponsor, I thought they would maybe ask. Like we would say, it's either you're a village operated event, and if you're not these things, you're not village operated. Or if you want to be co-sponsored, you can request that, but it has to go to council for approval. If you're just saying, we'll pay above the 100 and kind of let them decide which category they fit into. Was
Right.
my plan, maybe that's wrong, I don't know. I'm open
Yeah,
to
some things you,
whatever.
yeah, some things you, probably, there might be some discussion on what goes what where.
Yeah.
But
I say no co-sponsor.
No.
No,
across the board,
across the board, it's ours,
or it's not,
another event.
Well, say, how about like this?
I don't wanna have to make that decision.
Right.
When, I don't want to have to make that decision. Okay, you're the Memorial Day Parade, yeah. You're the cat and dog parade, nope. You're the muskrat parade, nope. I don't wanna go ahead and have to make those choices. I simply don't want to do that.
all offend people. But here's the thing, we're also, it's not, it's a fantastic idea. But you all also been here long enough that we do have history and tradition. And so while I'm just asking about how do we put this into effect in the smoothest way possible, it's going to fall flat on its face with some people. They will just not.
You think?
Oh, yeah, they'll forget about it. Absolutely. Absolutely, it's changed, it's like, well, like Danielle's example. Oh, well, we've always done it like this, okay, so. There's enough history and enough people to go back to those people that tend to do that and say, by the way. Starting January 1st,
Right.
this is what we need to do, you need to figure out if you want to be a co-sponsor in the event with us or not. And if we are, then we need to work on that. On one hand, we're small enough to be able to handle that kind of thing. But if we, to grow, we need to be more sophisticated. And yes, to say, you know what, sorry, Muskrat Susie, Muskrat Sam. We're not inspiring your event.
That's great.
But we've always been involved with the Memorial Day Parade. We've always been involved with whatever. And then, but it also gives us an opportunity to say, you know what? Maybe we don't want to be part of this thing anymore. Just like when we were looking at the River Racing Festival again. You know, what benefit is there for the village? When it first started, it seemed to make a ton of sense. Now we're just asking questions. We're gonna kill it. We're just asking questions.
Right.
This allows us to ask questions. And some of those co-sponsored things that we've done in the past that maybe we shouldn't do. So. Yeah, but I'm not ready to take an axe to everything.
Oh, I'm not saying that that's not an axe.
Well, and I think
I don't think
some of
it is.
it, I think when you guys look at the co-sponsors a little bit, you're gonna have to consider what the impact of the village is.
And that's.
So like let's say the high school wants to do the senior parade every year and they ride around town and typically the school resource officer leads them. He is paid for that time that the school then reimburses us for. The impact is really nothing. That would be a great co-sponsored event. There's not an impact to the village budget. It benefits the general public to see the seniors go through town. I would have no problem recommending that. Now, if what was it, Muskrat, Susie and Sam want to do, no, I don't know. Want to do a parade on a holiday that requires road closures throughout the entire town and DPW posting signs and blocking it and having extra police on force so that they can walk their parrot down their muskrat down the road. We probably don't want to co-sponsor that because the resource or the impact that that's gonna have on the village is considerably more than the one SRO.
You're gonna have to
that
be
we have
reimbursed
reimbursed
for the.
So is that what you're saying, as we go back and look at the previous ones and we determine whether or not those are on their own or they're.
Yeah.
And then moving forward, like anything new, we kind of address it as it comes. I agree with that.
Yes.
It's like the walk and bike to school or the walk right in the morning, right? We have police out there, the fire department's out there, et cetera. So again, is that, early morning, sorry, is that, and it's dark and whatnot, is that a co-sponsor, is that a school event, is it a parks, I don't know, parks Recs event, so. There are
Sure.
different events to where we kind of give and take
It
it.
allows us to watch
Agreed.
the dollars
Yes.
when where they go as well.
Yeah.
And if we all said, hey, it's worth $1,000 to us, then we know it's worth $1,000 and we know where it's coming from, just so that we can account for it. I like the idea.
It's
Well,
it's
it
not
gives
hard
the
for us to go
public a
back and look at the
chance
past
to-
couple of years. What
Because
kind of
they
events.
can
It's
come
not
say
That's easy to
something.
reach out to them and say, we're gonna do this differently. Here's the application. You've got 6 months to work on it, figure it out. Again, there's probably 20, that we would actually have to make phone calls and reach out. I can't think of. Above Laura and DDA who works right in here, she's gonna have the majority of them. The rest are, probably a handful. They have to reach out to the stuff.
Yeah, Parks and Rec does a few, but again, those are gonna be village operated. And village operated assuming their budget's for. Now, let's say Parks and Rec comes and they're like, well, we're gonna do. Whatever. Candy cane day and they have $0 budgeted and they want budgeting, then I would bring that to you guys and say, this is a village event, but it currently has no funding. Yeah.
If it's in the plan, we know about it, it's approved, I say you have at it, you have the authority to say. Understand, absolutely, it's in the know. Pull something out of the ordinary, let's determine whether or not, how we're gonna fund it, whether it's co-sponsored, whether it's our sponsorship, whether it's private. Then we can move forward.
And we could, in the ordinance, put something about, like, if it's a village or a co-sponsored event, like, we could put certain criteria that council would have to look at. And that maybe would help you guys every time an application comes
Yes.
forward, you're gonna, similar to, and I know it's very different levels, but like. When we do the findings of fact for variances, you go through and talk about each of those. I'm not saying as formal as that necessarily, but you would say, okay, we're requiring whatever, do they need that, yes or no? And if they meet those, then that's maybe your guide to approve it or not.
And they have to, maybe 30 days, so we have plenty of time to.
I,
Get it on
the
the
day
meeting.
change, and it's a good idea, and I'm cool with the
What
criteria.
criteria would you guys want to consider if you are looking at?
What did you say? Monetary?
Where?
You're not on any portion of it.
It's indeed notice of approval shall.
It's very,
Oh, that's notice of approval.
So, shall be given.
Because is one of the city we have.
right.
I think it's a benefit, and you may
Oh.
say,
Section 04,
that's why I'm saying.
I circled around there.
Criteria, it's like, that's why.
Not it's less than 20 days in advance of the date.
We're gonna change that.
Yeah.
Like, we don't want marijuana shops in there, right?
It's just at what cost and, is it good for the community? Yes, but other factors, that one's kind of like, like, when could they, it's great for the community, but we don't, what I
We
mean?
do already have too, that it can't be held for any unlawful purpose. So section 5AA. If the village finds that the special event is not to be held for any, or is to be held for any unlawful purpose and will not tend to act so to breach public peace or unnecessarily interfere with the public sidewalks, parks, places. So you're already going to look like, is it negatively going to impact traffic, is it like, is it going to be illegal, or is it going to cause such a nuisance to that
So
area
this would be
that,
part, this is like part of the criteria.
yes. Because that's gonna be your main thing, like if it's creating a nuisance, we should not be co-sponsoring it.
What would a nuisance be? Flash mob.
It would be that-
Corners.
It would be that freak show that's there on the initial, it says freak show.
It could
Yes.
be,
Did you not read
I
it?
passed 4 old ladies with Black Lives Matter signs in Sylvania this afternoon.
You see the freak show? Seriously, flip
What
over.
numbers are under? I don't remember reading that.
It was crossed out as,
crossed out.
Well, I was talking about the
so I think.
flash mob on all 4 corners, banners.
Yeah, I think if it's going to like impede traffic to a point that it would be unsafe, like let's say 223 specifically, or one of our main thoroughfares, if people couldn't safely or emergency services get around the event, then I would say that would create a nuisance. If they're wanting, let's say, and this is crazy stuff probably, but let's say somebody comes and they want to do an event that runs till 2 a.m. and they're planning to play really loud music until 2 a.m. We maybe want to say this is going to create a nuisance for the neighborhood. We're not going to approve this. Yeah, well, kind of, because noise ordinance is being amended. It's drafted already. So.
There's no one of freedom of speech too, like I would want, the satanic, whatever club shutting down something and having like a block party, right? Like, I mean, that, but part of that is the Supreme Court's rule that we have to be kind of open across the board with this garbage, right?
Yeah, but that's where you'd have to look at like a nuisance. I mean, if they're like, let's say they wanna do a satanic thing and they're lighting fires, like maybe the nuisance is we can't open flames, because, right? Or the, I mean, that's where you'd have to, I mean, you're gonna have to kind of look at it. And the thing is, like, with the criteria, if you guys say this is a nuisance, I mean, really, you could make anything up, I mean, within.
Do we already have an ordinance for protests?
We
And-
do not.
Okay. So right now, so this could handle maybe some of the
Well,
rest a little
we
bit.
do have disorderly conduct that does talk about, like gathering. And some things like that. It doesn't specifically say protest, but like you can't. I actually,
Block the
that one, yeah, you can't block the street, you can't, there's a few things, you can't gather in a, trying to think what the word is.
Several months ago,
It's
maybe
like
a year ago,
hostile way or.
people standing on the corner with signs, rocking signs back and forth. I don't know, was it the presidential thing? Was it Trump? Was it for something? It was for something.
It was police,
I'm sorry.
something with the police.
Anyway, that just.
So Michigan,
It's done.
Attorney General did a bunch of. This is a little off topic, but bunch of amendments to decriminalization to disorderly and all of the things that fall under that. You guys will actually be seeing that ordinance. Dave, Chief and I are meeting Wednesday. I have it drafted to try to protect us for some things like that within the law or within what we're allowed to do.
Because we know there's some people that. Most.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
but
it-
also, you said block the road, and sorry, if I have to drive through there to work, I'm gonna drive through you, and they better not come after me for, me driving through the stupid protest. I've got places to go, PD's coming after me for breaking through the barricade at 2 miles an hour. There's gonna be a problem. Garbage.
You're talking about protesters, don't they have, does anything like that happen for a lot of special events?
I mean, if they came and asked, I would tell them they would, but I think there's probably some loophole to that too. But if they came and asked, that's what I would tell them. They'd be like.
Something that's spontaneous.
But if they just show up on the corner or on the sidewalk.
Have you filled out your special?
Yeah,
request or
and
special ed?
that's where you get into what the state law allows and what they kind of deregulated, and Chief can talk about this a lot more, because I do know we've had a couple times, if they're in the public right of way and they're not, it's not in, like, it doesn't say the F word or something vulgar. There's not a whole lot you can do with freedom of speech in the way that the Attorney General has ruled on all of that. So we're getting into like a little bit complicated area. But I will say that this is new, so I mean, whatever you guys think here, I'm also gonna be very honest with you that we may do this and we might be like, crap, I did not think about that because we've never done this. So I guess keep in mind it's an ordinance. We can always amend it if something does come up and we're like, gosh, I wish I'd have thought of that. I mean, we tried, staff and I, to go through and think of the events we do in the different scenarios, but
But yeah, you're looking back at learning from the past and
yeah.
how you write it, so.
Eric, what were you gonna say?
I'm probably a little ahead, but is there an appeal process? If it's denied, for them to come back to council and appeal it, similar to how we have some other processes that may come back to us?
So there is a denial section that just says denial shall be in writing. I don't have an appeal process, for this. We can certainly talk about that. And then it does say that if the applicant can't meet like the needs, then it could be revoked and things like that.
Right.
So the village events are already in the budget, so there should not be a denial on that because they're going to be approved.
But we're not looking at approval for every event. But if I. So this would probably be for something new. Because that's a good point. But if the council approves it. How can you appeal something if the council approves? You can't go back to the council.
I'm speaking, what if the council, what if Danielle denied it?
Okay, and then it would come to.
That's where I was
Then
going.
would it come to us as the.
It's gonna come to us. It would come to us regardless, I mean, I think somewhat regardless, because. If she approves it, it's still gonna come to us for approval, final approval, right?
Or only for the co-sponsored
The
event.
co-sponsor or
Because-
that that's totally standalone.
Well, other events, and we can change this, I have the other events shall be granted by me, because we're saying in our application, they get up to $100 in village labor and benefits, and anything above that, they pay for. So we'll do it if they're gonna pay for it, and I would notify you, so, I mean,
Yeah.
But that would be more of a notification of approval. What I don't want us to do is to become. Event approval people, agreed. At the same time. I guess just like you were initially saying, making us aware.
and that was my plan for both the village and other events, is it would just, no motion, just put on the agenda. Because, one, the agenda are public to the residents, but then you guys can see exactly what was approved or what's being
Kind
required.
of as a check of what's happening with the staff, what decisions the staff.
So-
make.
I mean, the main time I would see events being denied would be if they're co-sponsored. And that's not necessarily a denial of the event, it's a denial of us co-sponsoring and paying for some of that cost. I mean, they could still potentially. And again, I don't wanna say this and freak people out, so I'm not saying, but as an example, let's say River Raisin Festival comes as co-sponsored and you guys say. No, we're gonna treat this as another event, you get up to $100, they can still move forward with their event, but it's just not, it would be applied for under other event and they build for that. Or they can, and again, example, or they can then say, you know what, we can't afford to do this, we're either gonna change our event or eliminate it.
I'm wondering if based on. I just popped up, I love Chat GPT, you guys, one of those things I use for school. And I'll pop there in a second. But the co-sponsored events, criteria being a number amount, I don't know, a maximum of $500. I don't know what that maximum magic number would be. I mean, where do we go ahead with the co-sponsor event? Is it? We'll go ahead and we'll sponsor up to 10 grand, we'll go ahead and we'll co-sponsor 30,000. Cause that's kind of what's going on with the river racing.
I was just gonna say that, isn't the river race like a lot of money for the beach?
Yes.
Yes,
Paying a
that
lot
is
of money for them.
a large cost.
And so that's why I'm wondering if we should have, and I don't know, I'm just throwing this out here since it's a brainstorming session. Do we have a max number
And I
that
would
we
be
would consider as a co-sponsor? I don't know.
What if another co-sponsored thing, he said, when you give this much money to River Raisin. And you're. Really gonna.
Well, it's always, because we're a municipality dependent on budget, and that's anything. At any point, if we do have the funds to give River Racing Festival, and I'm gonna use them as an example again, but we don't fund them. We're not obligated to fund any event at any level that we cannot afford. So that, I mean, budget always has to be a factor. Regardless if you put a dollar amount or not, you're going to have to look at that and say. Financially, we can afford to do up to X amount of
That
dollars.
mistakes are on you.
I don't like that, because
You don't like that.
I don't like the limit, just because, much like Bill said, what's the benefit of the community? If we have to look at it, we can kind of. As a consensus come together, and say, oh, well, this is, the River Raisin Festival is obviously something much larger draw than brings in something like Blacksburg, right? So I think we could say, the benefit of the community is maybe worth more of us investing this much versus a smaller event. So just to throw a max
Okay.
or minimum for me, I think
No, that's-
I think the more ambiguity of it helps us determine whether or not what we can invest or what we can't.
And I'm,
We still have a little bit of control.
but we could say something more generalized, like, something about like within, like funded to level as approved by council, dependent on current budget status. I'm trying to think of, I would word it a little bit different, but something that says like, if we have the available funding, I mean, let's say in 2 years, our general fund has no reserves and somebody comes to us, we're gonna say that we financially can't afford to do that right now. So I can somehow word it that it's gotta fit within our. Yeah, so I'll word it somehow, and not put a specific dollar amount, but identify that it's subject to what our budget is. Yeah.
I guess we would just need to maybe clearly define what's a sponsor, co-sponsor event and what's not. Or determine whether it's going to be co-sponsored or not. As to what that dollar amount might be.
Say it again here.
Would we need to consider whether an event is co-sponsored by the village or not, depending on what that dollar amount may be?
Yeah, but I think kind of in
There,
yeah.
For instance, I mean, like the Memorial Day Parade requires the street to be blocked off, 223 to be blocked off. We have police presence, we also have DPW. Other than that, there's not a lot.
Right.
But for other events, there may be more resources required, right? DPW, maybe they have to work on a Thursday or Friday to get things set up and prepared. And a Monday or Tuesday to tear some of that stuff down.
But you do already have in here, under the co-sponsored event, the village may provide financial support to these events as determined in the annual
Right.
budget appropriations, so I really don't have to ask.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, would it then become a line item in the budget? Thank you.
That's how I would use it. So if you guys, let's do the Memorial Day Parade, which seems like minimal resources, and by the way, I'm not saying we shouldn't fund
It
it,
is, but
but it's on a holiday, so it's
It's
double.
4 hours, a minimum of 4 hours of DPW time and a minimum of probably 3 to 4 hours of PD time.
At double time.
And double time,
Because it's a holiday.
because they typically will start blocking the road off at about 9:30 in the morning, between 9:30 and 10. And it generally doesn't come off until around 11:30 to noon. So you've got at least 2 to 3 hours there minimum, times 2 guys. And then the PD is the same way, you have at least 2 or 3, sometimes 3 officers on duty that morning. To cover not only the parade, but to cover any other potential emergency that may occur.
And I'm not saying that shouldn't be co-sponsored.
Right, I just,
But I think,
that as an example.
let's say
because it's-
that,
It'll be, I mean, that's next month.
and this year it won't be, in both
Right.
programs we have, but let's say we decide that that's a co-sponsored event. And that we budget whatever, I don't know the exact dollar amount off my head, let's say it's $1,000. What I would do next year is I would put in the budget so that you could see. Co-sponsored event, Memorial Day parade, with whatever that expense is.
I'm using that because 3 years ago, when I started helping them with it, it was not organized at all. And that may have been, I was probably about 22, somewhere in that time frame. They didn't
It's
have,
probably the.
well, because of what happened with COVID and they didn't have it one year, it virtually fell apart. Whoever was organizing and taking care of it didn't do anything. And the people that organized it, which at that time was the Legion, had no idea of the process involved with starting that whole thing. And now this year I came to Lisa because I've helped with it for the past 2, and this will be my 3rd year. I came to Lisa a little over a month ago and I thought she was gonna be jumping jacks in her office because everything. She says, I can't believe, she says, I'm so glad that you're here because that was on her list of things to start thinking about for the next 3 to 4 weeks, because she has to put in for some of that stuff to allocate time. I mean, I think we're gonna change it to 30 days now, aren't we?
Yeah.
Because 20 days is a little short.
And this isn't meant to, like, I don't want anybody to feel like they can't do events in Blissfield, like, we want them here, we want things in our community. The biggest thing is we want, the public to know if public dollars are going towards it and to communicate, like, if you need a road closure, or Lisa needs to submit a parade permit to MDOT, we need to know that more than a day or 2 before the event. Or it's not communicated at all, and then they're like, well, the village didn't apply for this. Well, we're not mind readers, we can't, I mean, we have a lot going on in the office, we can't possibly remember the needs of every event committee in Blissfield. So that's not our goal, or at least it's not my goal when I'm presenting this, it's just to make it fair and uniform across the board, what that expectation is moving forward. And probably, the first year we do this, we're probably going to have to look at it and be like, okay, did we think about this? Is that what we intended? Do we need to tweak this or change it? And then I would say after a full year of going through this, we should have pretty firmed up, like, we feel like we're in a pretty good spot moving forward, and this worked out, and I mean, hopefully in a perfect world, I'm gonna, after a year, be like, yes, it worked out this way.
Well, I think the initial idea of putting it in, and end up putting it in the budget. Helps us, helps every, it's succeeding council. And staff to be able to say, okay, this is coming up, because if it's in the budget, then it goes on the calendar. And I think that's a good idea.
Would there be any other criteria, and let's kind of focus on like new, that you guys, so we have, is it a benefit to the community? It would be subject to the budget and availability of resources there. Is there anything else that you guys would want for criteria?
I think that the part about the benefit to the community, that's the ambiguous part, and that's what I'm trying to figure out something else.
Needs to be qualified.
Yeah, I don't know what that would be, yeah, sure.
But then also the money. No,
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
like, okay, yeah,
Yeah.
health, safety, welfare, blah, blah, blah.
And then, yeah, that is included, but I'll make it that's clear too.
That it doesn't, I don't know, go against. It's hard, you want to approve.
You know, the phrasing
Gotta be careful.
in struck out. There, the freak show thing, I know we were laughing big on that. But the explanation where artificial or natural curiosities are exhibited. I wouldn't use freak show, but I would definitely maybe carry over that definition. As a limit. Of.
I say as a description, like,
Yeah, so as a limit for, okay, we're not, that way we can. We can all decide, or the council, whoever gets to decide, if, you know, if you don't want to do it. Let's send this one up to council, you know, or whatever, or however, but it would give you some. Because you and the staff know. At least at this point in time. How the seven of us tend to think. And if you're not sure and you want somebody at your back, give it to us. Give it to us.
how about this village, for the common good? I don't know, you know, I'm coming with.
I know I know, I get it, but it can always be. Who defines common good? That's the
I don't
thing.
know, I totally
Yeah,
get
you
it.
almost want
The lawsuits
like profanity, morality, you know what I mean?
Right.
Again, what kind of legal challenge do we have with that, which is ugly, but you want the welfare.
The well-being of society.
Sure.
So I have a question about your comment. I kind of like where you're going, but it made my brain go a different direction.
Sure.
So I just want to talk this out for a second. So you're saying, I think, like a condition, or if they are kind of outside of a certain criteria, that it maybe come to you. But what we could also do, and this maybe takes away some of the, you guys having to be the bad guy or that decision being out there, is we have a prohibited section that says these events will not, they're prohibited, they won't be approved, such as.
Here we missed one though, it's just like,
But we can do like something
You
that
put
says,
some sort of catch-all phrase.
correct, like this list is
Clause.
not exhaustive. Right, we can put some legal term that says that gives us some room, but maybe identify some very specific things that. To this,
Maybe where public nuisance comes in.
yeah, and that might, I mean, it would be, I think, probably a section that just says like prohibited events and. Kind of, it's the ordinance says that's prohibited. Or in the case that it's maybe outside of that list that we've said is not exhaustive, we can say, you can ask council, but I. Falls under this. I mean, that might be. I don't know, I'm not opposed to your way either, I was just thinking that might be more
Maybe it's a
clear and it
couple
just
ways.
takes
Maybe it has
it.
to be done in a couple ways, because I mean, you know, if we're gonna sit around and think about these things. Children have,
Of consistency too, if you
Yes.
guys change. And there's a whole new council that they're in the future following the same kind of rules and guidelines, it's not. Different 7 people are viewing it differently. So I mean, that
Sure,
would be.
yeah.
Yeah, just add that additional layer of consistency. That being said. Guys, are there any specific, you can think about this too, you don't have to tell me today, or if you. Um, and it's funny because that's actually right now.
I know.
permitted.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, right now. And I actually think it's odd shooting galleries are permitted when you can't discharge firearms within village limits. It's probably original, something I have no idea. I'll have to look and see if there's actually.
public indecency, I like it, because that's almost.
So
you can
we
tweak into, you know,
could say
Say,
something like anything that violates any other. Ordinance.
yeah,
Because
but indecency,
we
like
have that in
you,
the
staff kind of can determine, and if we don't like it, then council can. Over understand or say, you know,
This kind
we
of
have improvement on that, kind of, you know, yeah.
Deal?
Appeal, yeah.
But I agree with Mike too, we also don't wanna have to we don't wanna spend every meeting going through and approving something. And there's some of them are pretty much a no-brainer that they're gonna get approved, right?
On your application. 2203, should you include just the 30 days rather than move time lapse, like, should it just be like a very simple number 7? Any application should be received no less than 30 days prior to the event, rather than time lapse. Would that just be more clear, because if you're applying for something, yeah, you want to, you just kind of want to know, like, it doesn't say when it's actually due, but it just says, like rules for application, but it doesn't say when it should be.
No approval shall be issued for a special event application unless the application is made not less than 30 days in advance of the date. And what do you want,
Wouldn't it just be included under application?
why does that even need to be there?
Yeah, just that any application should be filed no less than 30 days, right?
So do you mean like under section 3, it's doing
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
we can do that.
Yeah, when that is be like,
Yeah.
that's part of the application process, okay, no, that has to be. Reviewed over 30 days.
Yeah. We can do that.
Would you deny, would you change your approval date though?
Well,
To approve it no less than 20 days or within?
so I don't know that I would, because I don't know, I'm gonna have
I
to
think
look
that
at
should be
the,
left. Yeah,
because
under
this is saying that,
5B, number B, or letter B. Notice of approval shall be given within 20 days of the approval application. So if you apply 30 days, that would still give them 10 days to do any final organization if they need to go. 20 days is probably enough.
Well, do we ever go like on a 5th or a 1st, you know what I mean? And say, the long weeks. When we go to the council, how often?
Yeah.
How often we go through, what, 3 weeks without a meeting, is that, so 21 days, is that? How far that we go between any council meeting?
right, because if we go outside that, we have to have a special meeting. For the rare occurrence, there's not a quorum.
What do you think if you bump that out to like 45 days ahead of time for the application to be turned in instead of 30?
Only bad thing about that then is if they submitted 30 days, then they wouldn't get approval till 15 days after the event. About that.
If it's given within 20 days, it says within 20 days, so 20 doesn't, technically, so if you don't meet till 7 days, then you get it. 20 days. Usually anything within 20 days.
We're talking about an outline from. With all these different other events going on, there's village on the buildings. But I think
Yeah, let me think about how we can word that though, because, okay, what if? That's got me thinking, like, let's say they apply to be co-sponsored. But what if like timing, we can't make a meeting, does that automatically kick them into? Other event and they have to pay the cost? And or can they get approval after and get part of it reimbursed or covered? Or could they hold off on paying the invoice until you guys, we don't want to pay that? I don't know that we do either, but I think maybe it's just, now we've kind of got me thinking about how we need to word that.
We might never get our money.
it'd be the only time that event would be approved. Like next year, if
Right,
it's not an
right,
annual
right.
thing, if they're looking to be an annual thing, but if it's a one and done, then we're out of it.
There might be times when there is maybe a one and done type of.
Sure.
Special like everything back.
It's a good start.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not gonna count it on anything.
But
I
I
like the idea
mean,
behind it.
the 20 days and put like a I underneath it says it is the applicant's responsibility to ensure that this can be presented in a timely manner at a regular rescheduled council meeting or something. We kind of put it on them, like if they come 30 days before and
And really the financial aspect is the big hold up, right? I mean, if they want something that's not gonna cost us anything, it's gonna be easy, quick, and out, big deal, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of a no-brainer.
Question for starting, we still on the idea of starting off with an amount that we would co-sponsor with anyone. Well, I think we are gonna go back and forth.
yeah, that's what my note was, that we were not gonna put a specific amount, but we were gonna reference that it had to be, like it was dependent on budget or.
That's what you're saying in the.
Maybe another time to discuss this, once we've had all of this brainstorming.
This is a really, really.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've not scheduled this for public hearing, it's not on a meeting with you guys, because I wanted. So I don't plan to leave this meeting and be like, all right, it's next meeting coming, you guys. That being said, would like to do it soon, because my thought process was that if we get it earlier, that gives us more of a window to actually get it implemented and say this is gonna go into effect.
Contacting the previous events, organizations, et cetera, I think that's gonna help.
And that's
You
why I
say,
don't,
"Oh,
I don't wanna
I missed
get
this, bring this
to,
back.
yeah, and I don't wanna get to November and then be like, oh, this is going into effect in a month either.
I did reach out to them and say, hey, it's coming up, you know, if you start applying. it
And we
doesn't
have
to-
already been telling people when they come in for events, like we have, for example, Rummage in the Park, they contacted me. And she's like, hey, what's the process? And it's a new group that's taking it over. I said, okay, well, this year, but I'm gonna be taking this to council, so keep in mind, and I told them like, I'll keep you posted. So we've been trying to share that a little bit.
They've already contacted you, that's 3 months away. They've done pretty good in being proactive to get there.
Should be included.
So,
Much like the work plan thing, you live and learn, you pass it on, and here's how it works. And, you know, so you don't miss this stuff.
For the criteria, let me throw this out at you guys, these are some of the things that, it would be approved if it were community and cultural events, civic engagement and education, public health and safety, youth and family programs, economic and environmental development.
Those are the community benefits I was talking about, right?
Yeah, so I just put down some specifics here, right?
Right.
Community and cultural events. Civic engagement and education. Public health and safety. Family programs. And economic and environmental development. And it's broad, it has, I just.
Ways or other.
Yeah. All right.
Thank
Thank you, Mayor. This is your welcome. I don't.
events I have violates any other ordinance of the village. Was there anything specific right now? Again. Mike, towards the beginning, I don't wanna miss this, you brought up. The $100 for other events and said maybe change that to 200. Did you guys, did anybody else have thoughts on that? Do we? And. I mean, I don't care if it's 100, 300, and this is really up to you guys, what your comfort level is.
Your chefs, you said how much in the beginning, and they said, well,
I said initially 200, and they thought that that was maybe too much. But I don't know that I think they were trying to think, like in timing, they were like, well, $100 is about 2 hours of our time. That takes away from something else is what I think their thought process was.
but I think Mike's
I
right.
don't know that they're,
The bucket truck and, I mean, mine is the bucket truck. It's a little different than
But if, say, I wanted to have a block party, shut down Cherry Street, I guess. Is $100 towards the rest of the community, 200 is quite a bit for a block party, right? You know what I mean, say, I don't need. Keep doing it, but I don't know, I guess maybe they do get a difference, and it does go quick, people don't understand how,
$200, oh, no, that's not.
Up to, like a line up to, okay, up to. Would we have anything in our budget, line item wise, for stuff like this?
We have. I don't know if this is how you've always done it, but municipal improvement under general fund. So that's where I would code it, that's how I code it now. So if, again, we hang a banner that's not really tied to anything, it's coded under municipal.
that fall under this realm though, like, again, the private golf events,
Yeah.
that's technically, special, that's something different, like, that should just be. They should just pay for that, you know what I mean?
I would call that a.
So I would classify that as another event. I know the event's not here, but they're requesting
Event,
special
really.
services. Yeah, that's how I would classify that.
Even on the banner.
Yeah, I mean,
I
it has
mean,
nothing
we
to do, we don't do
could do-
anything besides hang the banner like for a private event, either we don't do private events, or we just. Have someone separate say, well, it's $250 to hang a banner, you know what I mean, because of the cost. Associated, I don't know if it's. Falls under this realm of an event, it's technically, just. Like, again, private,
Other
public
events,
funds going to some sort of.
other events,
private that they-
That's how I would
Oh,
classify it, it's,
Other events.
but maybe we could clarify that. Cause you're right, like sometimes like the golf pipe, it's not even in Blissfield, but we still do.
How long does it take? Take a couple of minutes? See it done in an hour.
It takes about. A little less than an hour to hang a banner, and then the rental of the bucket truck.
At least two guys. because
It
one
does
guy
have to be
is-
two guys for
Right.
safety, absolutely.
But. Much to Daniel's credit, like the DPA, we've kind of nickel and dime that stuff to where. It doesn't just fall under the general fund or whatever, it's being charged specifically to each program or whatever, it's better checks and balances,
Yes.
so I would much rather see. We're not just, giving this private event. 30 days worth of banner and at $500 or whatever it costs them, to put that up and take it down. It is for the greater good of the community, but again, people are watching where we spend and we are tight nickel and dime, so. I'm not sure that,
And I think
We
this
should
is
be
the
allowed
thing,
that.
like. It's one. Is let's say it's $100. And that's fine, but now when I started, we had one person requesting it and now we had 5. And next year it'll be 7, if we're doing it for one, we do it for all, and so that's where kind of the other thing that it gets us into. Trouble a little bit too, is where do you draw the line?
The reason I ask is because is $100 unreasonable? To hang a banner? I'm thinking it's just, no, it's not. $100 is about what it costs. To hang a banner, but you guys, I'm not sure about.
$50 an hour.
Well, Brent has to go that, doesn't he?
What's that?
Brent has to go that time,
Correct, yes, he does now, yeah.
so.
And usually when it's like a he'll be like, where do you want me to code this? And I'll say municipal improvement. So then he'll mark on his time sheet if it was an hour and then we do pay equipment rentals too.
Well, $100's not a bad start, because at least we're recouping something, and we can go back and say, are we still using?
Is this actually paid? for
Yeah.
what we're
And we could say maybe a lot of other.
These guys are saying-
It's
you gotta go to
throwing
150
people up.
instead of 200.
It is, it's expressing, it's showing goodwill,
But also responsibility.
but also, yep,
So if we go.
so how do we
It's only 175.
put that in the budget? If it were another business, we would call it advertising. I don't. That's not what, that's not what we would call advertising, correct? But what, how do you put? Community goodwill, I mean, probably name a. Budget item, whatever, category, whatever you want. But if that were something that we wanted to do to help track. some of these things like that. I said, so this year we do it for 3 people, the next year it's for 6.
And I could separate it out of municipal improvement. The other things that are funded in that would be. Like replacing the flags at the parks are typically funded under municipal improvement. It would be kind of thing. What else? There's a few things that are within there.
It doesn't have to be
Um,
line item per se, every single detail, but it could be keeps somewhat of a track.
But I'm saying it could be like a department in general fund that maybe is for special events, where anytime we have one, so then you can at least see
Maybe we've already got it.
at the end of the year that, you spent $10,000 funding going toward, and I'm making up a number, but going towards those things.
So. As we're talking about the village end of this, we've already got village services for special events. Village operated events is one bucket, post-sponsored events is another bucket, other events, all under the heading of village services for special events. And, you know, even if we don't have to spend, I'm not a proponent of if it's in the budget, we've got to spend it, otherwise we're gonna lose it for the next year.
Yeah.
But if we put a number towards it, we would know that it, at least for me, it would feel like it's not open-ended. And, you know, we say, okay, you know what, we put $750 in this. And what we discovered is we've got $300 left over, or you know what, maybe we should bump that to 1,000 because you're right, it isn't fair to do it. You know, the first 5 people that come and ask for it, they get to use all the money, and it just so happened they used up all the money that we had allocated. So maybe we need to make that a little larger, but we would probably not turn somebody away. I'm sorry, our little bucket there, we don't have enough money to give you for this year. If it was something that we thought was reasonable and followed all of the other criteria. You know, we would make a extension or.
Then budget amendment.
Now what is it? Yeah.
I mean, and
I don't know.
you can always change it too, I guess. Initially, when I put it in there, my approach was that this is a change and that they were gonna go from nothing. Having to pay nothing or being fully supported to not, and this was, to me, it was a. Compromise of, you know, we want things to happen in our community, but not. Funded fully on the backs of our taxpayers, so that was kind of how I viewed it, but I get where you're coming from too, which is. Again, partially why this is coming to you, because I'm like, I can't keep paying for all this stuff, but,
Right, it's all like, yeah, it's been said before, like, you know, it's a thing of goodwill. Giving them a bone, an incentive to plan something for one. Oh, the village would give me $100 if I did something like this. Well, what can we do? You know, $100 is a good start. What else can we do? And at the same time. They would say, we have $100 roughly, I mean, it's perspective of seed money. We have $100 seed money. Pass a hat around the table. Or whatever, what a group wants to do something, and it's just a start. I look to fund everybody. I think what we're trying to do, what I want to do is, how are we fair to everyone? How do we track it? And how do we be fair to everyone?
it's doable, I just did we did Parks and Rec 4 events that are all $100 or less. All 4 of them.
Do we know how many other event type things we're looking at $100,000?
So I'm gonna go through, I can make a list for you guys, cause I was trying to think,
As they have to look at, yeah.
yeah, so
I mean, that's something like, okay, so this year we have this much in our budget to provide something, but again, we don't want to provide something and somebody say, well, you know what, then say, well.
So I know we've got an individual that, we actually have 2 softball tournaments. we've got they didn't do the banner for the golf outing.
They didn't do the golf outing this year.
Oh, they did it.
No.
You know if they're going to next
I don't think so.
year? So that one might
The Trent Frudenberg.
be going away. So the two softball tournaments, we have Rummage in the Park. We have the Memorial Day Parade, we have the Senior Parade. And I read you because you forgot to help art at your feet.
Homecoming.
Yeah, the Rotary Bonfire and Parade.
Parade of Lights.
Parade of Lights would be a
That's
village
media,
event.
that's a.
Festival.
Well, right now,
Oh.
the festival is co-sponsored, I would consider it co-sponsored. But yes, the festival, I'm trying to go through all the events in my brain. We have a lot more, but a lot of EDA, Parks and Rec has Blissfield on tap. They would do the triathlon because that's on the streets, and then. What else? Parks and Rec have that, I mean, those 4 3-on-3. I mean, those 4 new ones, if those repeat, well, really only 3 of those, because one was not really. A program or an event.
5K or 10K run being included in some of those special events.
Yes,
Mhm.
there is the
Turkey
the
trot.
turkey trot is one of them. And they do request bathrooms. He doesn't request barricades, right?
No, just the bathroom.
A couple of years ago, we had the bike people that came through. They did not last year, but they did a few years in a row, and that's a Lenawee County thing.
So when that Lenawee County White thing is that, they needed help.
Yes, and then they also wanted bathrooms.
I know the Ha Cha Cha is part of Wausau, but technically it's not.
Cha-cha, right?
Mhm.
It is during Wausau, but it is its own event. Outside of Wausau. Yeah, I think I'm at 10.
But a lot of those are sort of nonprofit, sort of, again, the greater good sort of thing, right? And so it's a give and take that benefits the community to an extent because. You know, whether it's Girl Scouts or whatever it is, you know. Yes.
Well, like one of the softball tournaments is a scholarship fund, so they're trying to raise money to then give to local students, which to me, that is a community benefit.
I don't think they can work up there just to have this. Yeah. If we know that overall it's gonna be helpful, right? If we know we're gonna get some money, and that's okay.
So I didn't really go through the whole application, but just, so the cover page just kind of goes through, like it references the policy, it does the definitions.
Okay, that's page 4 you're talking about.
Yes, I'm sorry, page 4 of the package. Says that they have to get approval. It does talk about insurance as well, which like right now the festival provides that to us. We actually get it for the festival and for Miss River Raisin. Yes.
So I do my take my craft show to Broken Fair. I have to have $1 million insurance.
Yourself.
Yeah, just for me, and anybody who might get. For it's not expensive, it's like $25 a day.
So most communities require $1 million. We have historically done 300, so I just did that again, but I agree with you. I think it should be higher. But and we could do 500, $1 million, whatever. I would say most everybody that provides it already has $1 million because, so if you guys want to bump it, I just. Again, kind of left that because I was like, oh, that must be what the Blissfield wants and. Are we generally okay with that or?
Even if somebody wants to close down the street or something, or have this private party, you gotta have. Employee insurance, I guess that's my only question, if it's like a quote, private.
If you close down the street, I don't necessarily.
Like for a block party or something, do you really, Like somebody's got a full $1 million insurance policy, so it's cheap.
Truly is cheap, yeah. It's expensive. It's not costly.
And it's to resolve the village.
Cause that's like last year, somebody. Twisted their ankle at the festival, if the festival had no coverage, we come back on the village for
Let's
that.
talk about the footbridge.
Um, I,
So tickets.
I mean, I guess we can talk, like, maybe it needs to be, like, if they're doing a parade, I mean, maybe if it's held on village property, or. I mean, if it's in a park, or, I don't know, because technically roads and right of way is,
Right. Like,
I don't know, it's,
we're gonna sue regardless, but
yeah,
yeah.
really, whatever your guys' preference on that is.
Are you playing Black Party?
No.
Yeah.
Hundred place.
DJ is.
Yeah.
I can tell you our insurance will want that.
I don't know, I'm just trying to, you know what I mean, trying to think like a simple, just like not a quote spots through event, but if somebody had something. Just a little ad hoc thing, do we really need 300,000? Insurance? I don't know. Trying to think, not that we have a lot of private events, not one thing.
It's better to have it not needed.
Yeah.
When you need it in mind.
Yeah, because anywhere really, they need permits, could be a parking lot or street or something, so I guess that makes sense.
I'll talk to insurance, then legal, and see if there's what their thoughts are on that. Page 5 is, we're just collecting information on the event, same with 6. So I did try to make some boxes that, to maybe help the applicant, like, special services, police department, public works, Main Street. I was trying to list the main things, and that's not to be like inclusive of everything, but just so they like, right, I wanted them to kind of know, like, if they look at it, public works, so I need barricades, or, and they may put that in the wrong spot, but just was trying to generally provide some guidance on that. And then the next 7, same thing, porta potties, and then 8 is a map that they can use, or they can make their own. I don't really care. I was trying to make that application like.
Yes, that's why I can't figure this out, it's like.
It's where the box. So you can say that like this is Sugar. Or,
Oh.
and whatever roads, and that you're gonna block off from here to here on, and this is Gibson.
Well, don't do that in Ohio, because their streets are like this.
Well, or.
That's-
We don't have to, I was trying to make. it
Just
like
make,
as
just have a
easy
big
as
box and
possible.
draw a map.
Protect map.
Confusing.
Okay,
Yeah, cause I would look at this and I'm
Oh,
like,
yeah,
so
yeah.
what am I
Sometimes
supposed
turn on the Google Maps and say, here it is.
well, that's what I.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna write out, I need this.
For your direction. I'll note down there, or I just tell them.
Yeah.
And then page 9 is just like the notice part that they're responsible, who the contact person is, so if something comes up, the village knows who we need to reach out to. And then the legal. Download it. This kind of protects us a little bit.
Would you put like our DDA inside, you know, like where they get a copy receipt or approval date, well, you know what I mean?
Like an
Or
internal
kind of
file.
like, I kind of checks and balances, like expired or, you know, approved by, or I don't know, contact info, just anything.
Yeah, we can do like.
Anyway, you've got a copy, I've got a copy, and if you don't abide by this, sorry, but you're revoked or whatever. Like, here's the conditions, or here's.
And it lets them know that they sent it in.
Yeah, yeah.
We can do that. Okay, so I'll work on getting all of this stuff changed. That we talked about, and then if you guys think of anything else, please let me know. I'll send it to you once I have all the changes, and then. we can talk about getting this in front of you guys with the public hearing and
I
stuff.
like the $100, just because if we start documenting what stuff costs, at least we can relate to people. I mean, people just don't know what something's cost, so. Exactly, you know, you may get mad that we're only giving you $100, but if it costs us $250 to hang this banner. Again, that falls back on everybody's backs, and we're the stewards of it, and we also get the, you know, the negativity of people saying everything's too much, so.
So,
We need to
another question, so like a parade. Someone comes in with, because of the extra costs, and they decide to the other events. What if there are other events?
So if they come in as other events, what I would do, I would prepare like a cost estimate. So I'm gonna I'm gonna tell you
Okay.
guys when it's on the agenda, I'm gonna say, these are our expected costs, you know, given. It'll be pretty accurate.
Okay.
Unless, you know, let's say I budget 4 hours and something crazy happens and it's 5, or things that I'm not aware of that come up, but generally it'll be pretty close. Up to.
And start somewhere, we never had.
Thank you guys for working through that, would be appreciated. I really appreciate all the staff's help on this too, because I know it's completely new idea.
Yes, yeah.
They did help out the
You
time.
said other communities do it as well.
Yes, there are, I don't know how many, but a lot of communities that do very similar, maybe a little bit different. Some do nothing for money, some don't do, it just, I think, kind of depends on the community preference and the size too, because larger communities, they fund $100 potentially is a way different impact than if we fund $100. So you kind of see it across the board, but yes, it is not. In fact, some of this
Some
is
of this
ripped off.
large parades stuff costs, in the little city of Toledo, you know, if I don't say, you know, like, imagine county officers, you have overtime or is it, like, that stuff.
And that's, I think you're right, people just don't realize that it's not about Jensen. So are you ready for two?
Everybody else is good.
Everybody ready to move to 2? Okay. So utility billing for what I'm calling snowbirds, I don't know if that's the proper term or not. Okay. So I have no attachments for this. I put information in here for you guys. I reached out to all of the communities listed. The only one that's not on here, I did hear back from Morenci after we had sent out the agenda. And they do also require the availability to be regardless if they're out of town. So I just wanted to let you guys know what others do. If you want to, I guess you guys tell me if I'm missing an option, but I think potentially the options are they pay the availability fee regardless if they're shut off at the curb stop or not. We could do a reduced fee. We could do, if they shut it off, no availability fee. I mean, I think it's really up to you guys. My concern is that the infrastructure is in the ground, ready for them when they come back from Florida. It doesn't go with them. There's still the cost of taking care of all that. And then more so, we already have high fees, and I just am concerned that if we start seeing people do this, and let's say it's 60 people who for 4 months don't pay their availability fee because they're in Florida or Arizona or wherever, that fee, that money revenue has to come from somewhere. So ultimately, it just, to me, it increases those fees because we have to make it up somewhere. It's an enterprise fund, and I just think I don't know that that's the most fair way to do it, that we all pay more because some people aren't gonna pay while they're in Florida or wherever they are, right? Use Florida as an example. So that's my concern, but I understand where the residents are coming from. I'm not saying I don't. I will do whatever you guys want. I can draft up the ordinance, however you want that to look.
Wonder how much the Manchester charge for that.
I can tell because I asked.
Okay, as opposed to the availability.
So charges a $20 turn on, turn off fee.
I don't cover
Currently, their availability fee for water only is $20 a month. However, they are in the process of a fee study right now, and they don't have those results. I am actually going to be requesting them because I'm curious. So I suspect, I obviously don't know that that'll change. In fact, Dan did say that he's like, we really need to look at that. But I don't know what that new fee would be. And then Manchester charges $50.
$50 off and $50 on.
Yes,
What's there?
I don't know that. I should have asked him, I did not.
Expect probably bucks.
I would guess it's probably around there.
And what about the other ones that require, you know, regard?
What their fees are, I did not ask for that at all.
Do we currently have fees like that?
Ours is $90. If it's after hours, it's $180 for a turnout fee. But during business hours, it's 90.
90 off, 90.
Correct.
And then when you talk about the availability, that's keeping your water as is without turning it on, without turning it off.
So our availability fee right now is $109.65 per month. That's before any usage.
So they would be, if we went ahead and they, ordinance requires availability regardless, they'd be paying $109, $110 for the 4 months they were on.
Or however many.
Exactly, right, that's per month.
Per month, correct.
they're paying 90 off, 90 on plus inspections, right?
They were paying because of they were pulling the meter.
Yeah. Or,
So
yeah,
that permit was $75.
That's if it's full. How much is it to pull it?
Whatever, if you pay a plumber or you can pull it yourself, but that's the thing, these new meters, and we talked about this when we went to the new meters. They're not made to be pulled in and out,
Right.
and they're smart meters, so let's say, even with it turned off at the curb stop, something happens and water starts flowing through that or starts coming back, where we get alerted. If they pull that, we would have no way, no alert system, no.
Right. So currently, just to clarify, 90 on, 90 off, and then the $110 per month is what it would be. Correct. If we don't change it.
Correct. And they don't have to turn it off at the curb stop. If they like, and this varies, some of our residents leave their heat on, they have somebody go check on their house. They don't even shut their water off. They leave it on the whole time. So that they would still pay, they don't have to pay the $90 turn on off fee. They would just pay the
$100.
correct. And let's say somebody checks it and they use 20 gallons, which we bill in 100 increments, then they would pay any usage. But again, it's usually minimal. And then we have some residents that pull the meter or turn it off at the curb, they turn their heat off and they fully winterize their house. So it varies. So then those people would pay the $90.
Not this.
Yeah, well, they would pay that. Yes. Yes, unless you guys, we want to rewrite the ordinance, because the only time they wouldn't pay the base fee is if the meter is completely full and they're not connected to service. Which would happen like in these other communities that like Dexter and all those, Brooklyn. Like, let's say that the home had a fire and they pulled the water meter because they're doing a reconstruction, or they're just doing a reconstruction because they're getting ready to sell it, nobody's living there, they have no water connection, they might pull it for them. Obviously, a new construction, if it was deemed like dangerous and not livable, they may pull it. If they're gonna leave the country for 2 years and they might pull it. It's not usually because they're gonna go somewhere for a few months. It would be more like a long term or something's happening.
So are we having to redo the ordinance or just saying as is, we want to just keep it as is to be proactive for that's kind of where the thought was.
I just wanna make sure that we're out in front of this. Because if we leave it as is, currently, they will not be able to take the meter out. So they're gonna pay the availability fee regardless of whether they're here or not. We're not, basically, we're not giving them the option to turn it off and remove the meter. Like, they only pay $90 to turn it off and $90 to turn it back on, plus whatever fees they may incur to have their plumber to undo it and put it back together.
But then if they pull the meter, would they physically hand it to the village, or would they keep it on hand, or how did that? How did that?
So, most of them would keep it on hand and then they would call it, which. Again. We didn't have a ton of them, we had. I can think of two off the top of my head, I'm sure there's a couple more than that, but they usually would leave them right on site. It would just be pulled and like disconnected and they would be sitting right where it would be mounted normally. That's how they usually did it in the past.
Right, and the whole point of the new meters is to be able to monitor and say whether it's off or not. The 109.65, I don't like it, because I wouldn't like it if I'm not living here either, but again, that is. Ready to serve fees, however you want to word it, availability fee, that is fixed costs. That's what it costs to produce and maintain infrastructure and operations, et cetera. So again. We just need to word it properly or name it properly, whether it's ready to serve or whatever, because that's actually what it is. So. Whether you're here or not. Much like Danielle alluded to, if they're not paying for it, it falls back on the rest of us that are staying here. So again. Like it or not, that's what it costs to operate and maintain physical infrastructure versus the usage. So maybe we rename it or whatever to make it clear. Again, I don't like it, but it's high.
Well, and I
But
did
again,
put out
that's
that
what
fact
it is.
sheet
Yeah.
that described the usage and the fixed fee or availability, whatever you wanna call it. I get it, like, I don't like our fees either, I wish they could be different, but. I mean, unfortunately, this is the position we're in. And it is an enterprise fund that has to support itself.
But those numbers are counted, this is important, so.
Yeah, but I do think that potentially you leave it as it is and they pay. You could change it where they pay the turn on, turn off, and they don't pay an availability. Or I think a third potential option is that you do like some kind of reduced rate, like. Maybe if they pay the $90 and instead of, I'm not saying I recommend this necessarily, but instead of paying the 109.65, they pay 75, or I don't, whatever that dollar amount is, or a percentage, 75% of the normal fee, or whatever. You guys wanted that to look like.
They've always paid the availability fee if they pull, correct?
No, if they pulled the meter, they did not pay that. And again, we're talking about probably a handful of people. That in the past have done this, I don't know about new people.
And that was a good way to usurp the rule, but again, all that infrastructure is from their home. Back out to the water treatment plant, so again, that stuff's still there, and it still has to be maintained and fixed, so whether or not you're tied in or not. The availability is literally by definition, you have the access to them.
Well, and I think you're getting into a slippery slope too, like right now, it wouldn't make sense to pay the $90 turn on, turn off fee for 2 weeks, but. You know, it might for 2 months, and now, I mean, it doesn't seem like an impact, but we have more and more people doing that, it would or could impact our budget. And our revenues, I mean, fairly significantly, depending. Yeah,
Those 5 or 6 that we waived it for those months, that we made them pay it now, then it's not great much.
correct. And it's always been, if they have a meter, they pay, but that's why some of them would choose to pull their meter.
And just
completely.
the normal resident pull that meter. This
Yeah.
months without damaging it or causing an issue.
And
I don't know, I'm just asking,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna pull mine. I'm
I
just
think
asking.
the meter can be pulled, yes, I think where you most likely are gonna run into issues is the connection to them to you.
So the accuracy of it. Once you just had to reach. New meters that you can turn on. Yeah.
So not all of our meters have those, it is an added expense.
What is the
We
benefit?
did. So we do have 100, they're called RDDs or auto shut offs. The benefit is that I can sit right here and I can pull up an account that has an RDD and click a button and it'll turn the valve and shut their water off. Without having to send DPW to the curb stop.
Doesn't stop at the curb, it stops.
It stops it at the meter, so it won't let it go through the meter. But the benefit, the ease of shutting them off or turning them back on. And it also, like, let's say that you have one service line going into a duplex and they have 2 meters. Well, right now, let's say duplex A doesn't pay their bill, but duplex B does. I can't shut them off because they only have one service line. Where now if they each have an auto shut off, if A doesn't pay, I can shut them off, but B's water isn't impacted.
So the benefit is us. Turn off, turn on, it's a bar meter. But could a snowbird be that benefit as well? Probably would have. If we've got.
They could.
To serve fee.
They could, because they wouldn't be paying the $90 to pull it, then we would have to be offset the cost on them purchasing. Part of that smart meter potentially,
Well,
And
it's
then-
not, the meter would stay the same, well,
you know what I'm saying?
Actually.
Because then they're not paying the shut off, turn on. We can flip that easily by computer in here, you know, and that's a couple, 30 seconds right worth of time versus setting. DPW truck out and literally. Pulling it or whatever, or should turning it off and turning it back on. Again, it's much like the garbage tag thing, it costs money to count and these stupid things with rubber band. I don't know, if they're gonna come out in the long run, if they maybe got that smart meter and paid. Say, I'm gonna be a snowbird for the next 20 years, if I pay for half a meter or whatever is above a regular meter. That's gonna save me the $90 turning out on over that course of the 20 years, right? So,
We're talking about how many people, 12 people?
that pull the meter,
That are snowbird people that,
well, we have more than 12 snowbirds.
this would, that in your knowledge, 24 people? 24 residents?
But again, a majority of them just continue paying it.
So let's just
It's
say,
probably,
I don't
I
even
can
know.
only think of 2.
Seriously, most people don't even,
Yeah, I
and how
off the top of my head,
have
every,
1,200? 1,200, how many? Farms?
uh,
And that's what I know. I'm just saying, okay, so 2 divided by 1240, we're talking about 0.0016.
so we have 1,569 services. Like some of those would be duplexes or.
We're talking 0012, yeah. That's what we're talking
If we
about.
could shut it off here, there'd be no need to pull it, correct?
Well, we can shut it off at the curb stop without pulling. I mean, there's really the meter should not be
Well, then
pulled.
why would they be pulled in the back?
Because they don't want to pay the base fee is why they did in the past.
Don't wanna pay it.
It's not.
That availability
You cannot use water. So
Correct. And that's why they paid in the past, but really, the meter should stay, and it's, again, it's a protection for them, like if the water were, if that curb stop were to break and all of a sudden starts going in, or. People turn on their curb stop and their neighbor hooks up a hose, or whatever the reason may be. I mean, that has happened in Blissfield. True example, so I mean, there's just, then we would know, right, with the old meters.
Same house, these are what?
So you started.
Did I-
You know, Cece's Chop Shop. Shit. All right. Neighbor upstairs, put the water hose on her, all that, and just pull the water.
It's not the only person.
Yeah, that's not the only, I didn't actually know about that. I was referencing a different one. So it's happened more than once at least, you know. And with the cost of water, like, you shouldn't have to pay for your neighbors.
Maybe they thought they were paying for
Yeah.
Sure it is.
I know that I kind of started this whole thing, or at least brought it to the meeting, but I'm okay with not turning off anything and leaving it as is and leave the ordinance as is and requiring them to pay the availability fee, whether they're there or not. It protects us in many ways. It'll protect them potentially in many ways too, if they had a water line break. I mean, it could literally, like, you could turn it off at the meter, but if that line coming out of the wall of your basement breaks before it gets to that meter where the shut off's at, you're gonna have a leak.
Your $400 that you just paid is minimum for what you have.
I mean, the chances of that are very small, but if it happens, it's a mess. Somebody comes home to a basement full of water, they're not, yeah, they're gonna be, that's a lot more money.
It'll just disappear in the thin air like, oh, what's it?
400,000 gallons.
Oh, I don't know where that is. That happens, right?
But it won't be happening anymore.
No.
And I mean, people do appreciate, like, we have called a few people. I think I told you guys this before, the majority has been continuous consumption. We've had a couple spikes. In fact, this month, we had a few and they had pools. So we made a note on the account so that we know that moving forward. But, people have been, yeah, okay.
Because it didn't rain, so we had.
Yeah, so we have, at work, we've seen like McDonald's, for example, their usage jumped up, well, they turned on their irrigation. So we're starting to see some of those things with us going into nicer weather, but we've been able to call, we had one resident, all of a sudden, they were using 200 gallons an hour, which is substantial, and they're like, oh, well, this was broken, and they were able to get it fixed.
So
we're
you'll
able
still
to see
flag it, right? You'll still flag it or whatever, give you it.
So we get the alert the next
But at
day.
least you can look
Then
back
you
at it,
can-
oh, they're probably doing this, or they would be.
Yeah,
I
so
wanna just
if
like
we make, so we
erase the red flag so that.
we can't delete the red flag at all, but then what we've been doing is going into utility billing and we've been notating like this customer has a pool, so that. Next year, around this time when they fill, we can look and be like, oh, okay, it's their pool and we're not constantly bothering them.
So I appreciate the guy holding me this group. Well, I didn't know that. Golden Spring, well, it's not, so we fixed it. You know what I'm saying, just that something simple like that, you know, that's so appreciate that.
Well, and the toilet can do a lot.
I did, yeah.
Cause I just last Thursday called a resident and they were using 40 gallons an hour and he goes, yeah, last night my toilet handle broke. I go, you might wanna get on that, cause 40 gallons an hour.
Yeah.
And he's like, just that toilet, I'm like, oh. And so as soon as he fixed it, dropped right off.
Well, not to change it too far off that, I had my water line replaced to mine because I was getting something drawn and sand or whatever for my curb box. So I was, yeah, witnessed that firsthand. This is going to be how many do we have? This is gonna be expensive. Our roads are gonna be cut to hell.
We're talking about old.
The water on it, yeah, I mean, it took. Took off for 5 of the DPW guys, it was offered getting late or whatever, but it took them most of the day to do it. It is gonna be ugly. So how many do we have to do yet?
I don't.
And if this is on our dime, or if they're gonna fight in or what, we're probably
So
talking,
right now, there's no funding.
well, so you're talking probably 4 to 8 grand a house. How many do we have
So
to
the
do?
range is 6,000 to 9,000 per house.
There you go. And
And
then
it's
on top of
400
that,
something.
curbs tore out, streets cut.
Yeah.
So, yeah, maybe we hold off on milling and doing anything until we really, we don't wanna start chopping up new roads, or let's say we're gonna specifically pick one road and do it. Well, every year we can afford, and then we go through and mill it, because I hate seeing our gravy road chopped up.
You were getting sand in your water?
Yeah,
This
And there wasn't any work, and no work was going on.
no. I mean, it was a lead line anyway, so I guess that's my point too, is that how many lead lines do we have to do, where we're gonna have a curb box? Whether the water line was of course on the other side of the road, so they had to cut the entire street, cut the curb, cut the sidewalk.
He had to do his service line.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
I don't know if my service line was lead or not. But it was rusted through.
Yeah.
And it was the surge from turning the water back on after the new meter was installed. And it was a little over 5.
Yeah, and I think that's what happened is they put my new meter in, the elbow come into the house, but like I said, before the meter was not tight, so they shut it back off for the tighten it, put the meter back on, and that may have when it occurred. It's just.
But and I get that it's ugly, but and because it's happened to us as council members, it did not cause the problem. It revealed that a problem was there. And I mean, because the first thing I thought was, well, this is a nice, how do you do on our free new meter? But I also realized, because I'm watching them dig it up, and I'm looking at the pipe, and they try to brittle. Yeah, oh, absolutely, brittle's a great word for it. You try to fix one spot, and boom, right at beyond the patch, a new leak starts, and it was all right, fill it in, boys, just fill it in, and then a new line was bored, ditch witch through. And it was
everything that could go wrong, again, you're at cast iron and then you're going to 11. So again, they tried to, take out the tap, but then the tap started to come loose from the main. So then they had to bring in a sleeve and sleeve over it, which is like $400 for a sleeve and then it goes right back into where new tap and sleeves over where the original tap was. So it was good to see it firsthand. But my point is, it's gonna be expensive. And, the fallout of our roads are gonna be like crap for a couple of years and et cetera, et cetera. Do we have enough revenue? We got anything else that we have to do?
It's 400 something.
400.
Yeah, that's at my house.
400.
Services, yeah.
Good pressure. Clean the backhoe is nice.
yeah.
It's just I don't know if you want to see it, Mike actually texted it to me.
It was
but-
jet plant that, bubbling through. Walking in water was just bubbling right out the ground.
We wish we talked to that Texas tea.
You betcha. Yeah.
But again, so 400.
Yeah, I can tell you the exact
That's an
number, but
average
it's about
5,000.
400. So before you guys wrap up to leave, I actually would like to share something and ahead of time. I don't even want to tell you guys.
You're not leaving here.
And no, I mean, I guess maybe let's see what I say after I tell you. No, I'm just kidding.
She's on.
I did want to give you guys a heads up that today we had A1 Concrete out at the pool. This is the 3rd year that they've come out there to lift up some of the sidewalk because every year around the pool, it settles with all of the water and causes unsafe tripping hazards and conditions. And while they were out there, our slide line was hit. Line with water into the slide, yes. So currently the slide is not operational. I'm working with Brent, we're gonna try to find a small camera in there to see if there's a hole, if it.
What do you mean it was hit by them drilling to fill and lift it?
I don't know yet, I'm still, so. Should have taken. a
Maybe
picture.
inspection cameras, you can hook right to your cell phone.
So that's what we want to do is get a camera in there to see, well, it's fairly small.
It's less than this.
The pipe size, so yeah, that's what we need is something small. So the slide is, the pump house is here, the slide is here. And when I went out there, the corner of the pool, there's like the wall in the, in the fence. In the pool that is there, and then kind of the corner shallow end, deep end is here. Right in that corner, it was spraying up this high probably. So it's not, but the slide pump house. Leak.
It's past.
Well,
that's the other side of the,
Yes, I am completely.
how do we know it's the slide, though, the slides don't get water?
No, the slide's feeding dirt into the pool, but we turned it on.
And this weekend, we're going
We are opening Saturday, the 24th, yes.
to.
So. I really don't have. Okay, we need a camera and see exactly what's going on. I will tell you that. Based off of what I know now, which is not a lot, I think that we need to close the, well, slide has to be closed until it's fixed. It's right, I mean, literally on this. It was spraying up, so even if we hand dig that area, there's a lot of risk for that dirt and debris getting into the pool, which will cause us to fail our samples because of the contamination. Or, I mean, even if it's clean dirt, it gets dirtier and the chlorine doesn't work as good. So then we have to close our pool down until we get it all cleaned out, get 2 passing samples, and then we could reopen. So I would rather close the slide and not have a slide and have a pool for the summer. The diving board would work, the pool will work, the pool pump is working, the pool, I mean, it. Again, we did get some debris, but got it turned off
Can we
quickly.
talk, I didn't get it.
Make sure.
The one where we gotta find out where it's at, because then we'll funding, because it's behind it, and again, we run the risk of getting the key in there.
You would have to get.
Even if it's so close to the pool that if you saw cut that and dig down to the pipe, you are going, there's no way to avoid it. And I'm more than happy if any of you wanna go out there, I can show you exactly. I'm a visual person, so if you wanna meet me out there, or I can take you guys out there and show you exactly like where we were at, where it was spraying up and why I'm concerned with contamination. I'm more than happy to do that. And after we camera, like if I get additional information, if we can do something, we will. Please don't hear me saying we're gonna do nothing. I guess right now, based on the information I have, I would say the slide.
So you can shut the pool, the slide off.
The slide is off,
So
yes.
it is pretty well determined that is the line.
It is absolutely the slide, yes. I mean, if you turn the slide on right now, water will come out the slide and spray up at the same time, and there's like dirt and. Debris from.
Like sand line.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a specific shut off in that pump house, like labeled water slide or whatever, and that you shut that off and it all is good.
Yes.
Can't use another hose. The hose is.
So, so Brent and I, we were sitting there today as we debated on quitting. We're trying to,
Drilling in the.
well, that too, trying to figure out, and we did talk about that, if we could run a hose.
Right.
But then we have somehow to cover the hose, and then with the state of Michigan, it has to be chlorinated, treated, so how do we run it through the filter?
Beside the kids can fill their bucket up, go out.
They already, I will tell you guys, so well, Brian does know because he happened to call at the exact moment, the office. So Lisa told him, and he had actually texted me, I was like, do you have spies? This is crazy, but the guards don't know yet. They probably are not gonna be overly sad because where we have a lot of issues is the ladder going up the slide. Each other, and yeah, they try to go up together, or the handrails, they'll be wet and try to race up there and they'll slip and fall, and it is one of our most challenging aspects of the pool to guard and regulate, and we're constantly, so in that aspect, it absolutely, yes, but
My granddaughter's one.
I got 30-foot cameras, that's Brent, if he takes somebody on.
I will ask him, yeah, I mean, we could, honestly, I think we'll try it, if it's not long enough, then we'll really plan, we can try to find. I think potentially, Brent and I talked about disconnecting, there's like a, flexible hose that comes into the PVC and disconnecting half the slide, I think that would be enough if we can get it from there.
Yeah.
Cause again,
Or, yeah,
none of our
yeah,
plans
shoot
show,
down from the slide.
yes.
Okay.
Show the plans and.
We don't have prints and.
Well, I have friends, but none of them show where that section of.
There's no as built.
It's crazy.
That is kind of funny. Yeah, same thing. How do you not know that that's where the line is?
Probably shows where the line is supposed to be at, but
More.
it doesn't show an as built as to how they.
It doesn't.
That's true by ASHTO. I understand that.
So the plans just notate that it'll be dependent on the type of slide that was
And then
installed.
that's where it's.
We're
Built it,
contracted.
maybe, or not maybe, built it.
Mig did the plumbing portion,
They
yes.
probably want to answer a call.
I'm not, I could try, but I don't.
What's that term when you put the logo on?
Not
Oh,
right now.
that's right. Well, let me know, I can feature the camera.
Okay, yeah, let me check, I'm sure if it's.
It's the
if
stuff
it'll
that
fit, we'll
people
try.
expect, I would love to see it fixed for, even if we get soft
And
cut.
and if
if
we
know that
can,
it's-
that, we absolutely, if there's something we can do, and I will, as we get more information, keep you guys posted, but. We open on Saturday, my hope is to still open the pool without a slide, worst case scenario, I just wanted you guys to know. I will be putting something out, I am sure we will get beat up, it was not on this. Obviously, anything that we
Yeah.
wanted or anticipated.
Here's running.
Heaters are running, yeah. We did get the bill for that, so we did have, it did not start up this year, which it didn't last year. He got it started up and then they did do a full cleaning of the heater, sanitized everything, went through all the parts. He named a bunch of them, I'm not pretending no injectors and all this stuff, but it is running.
Can we get a bunch of time, can we get a real good, let's start nickel and dime and everything that this costs, try to do that for us?
I will try, yes.
Okay.
Cause
Yeah,
we
like
need to
people
talk
know.
about furniture. Because our furniture is already starting to, the tables specifically. So I was looking at tables and lawn chairs, one lounger. It's $1,000. For like nothing fancy, it's mind blowing to me. I will do my best though, to get that itemized and.
Oh, 6 foot or 8 foot tables.
These look like 4 foot.
Be going Dennis tomorrow from like my jog.
You're gonna have to start wearing a bike.
Yeah. I'll lose my energy doing aerobics in the pool when we have aerobics.
That's without a slide.
In the aerobics section.
Oh my God. I'm sorry, but I wanted you guys.
Well, it's better for us to know about it now than to find out about it from somebody calling and tell us.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And you know what? Warriors will be the warriors and all we can do is it's a fact.
Well, let's find it. If we can isolate it, then we know where it's at. Let's sock it. We don't have to dig it up now, but say we have some bad weather or a long weekend or something stupid, but then maybe we can jump on it.
Yeah, like you could find that the line is 15 feet away from the pool, you saw cut it, not contaminate the pool.
Yeah, I will keep you guys. posted.
As long as it's not going through the splash pad.
Yeah, we gotta, so we just need to know where it feeds.
The splash pad is run separate.
Yeah, I know, I'm just saying.
Why would it go past the?
That, I'm telling you, it is,
It was been right.
when.
How far past this one?
Right at the corner of the
I'm
road.
terrible at measuring, it's a couple feet, it's like, I mean, this.
Coil some of that smaller cable, thinner cable, so it wouldn't be stressed. And if they didn't coil it, and then,
But it's PVC line in the ground.
but it isn't there. So maybe I'm just making some assumptions about the. DOD or idea of the pool of the slide line. Because typically those are, they're not very large, but if they're using PVC. Then maybe
Yeah,
there's
so
something
it's
different.
PVC going into the ground and it's, again, I'm so bad at measurements, I'm gonna say it's probably like a. I don't know, 2 inch, 1.5 inch, and then once it comes out of the ground, it's got like this black, flex. Hose that runs up to the top of the slide, and then obviously the water feeds out from there, but in the ground is PVC.
I'm with you, Sherry.
And as you get closer to the pool, the concrete there is about 18 inches thick, and the farther you get out, the less there is, so the farther it's about 4 inches, or the farthest point is 4 inches, so the concrete thickness changes substantially as well. So it's based on where it's coming out, if it's there, it's buried in 18 inches of concrete. Because that's right next to the pool, because again, the closer, the more concrete that was there.
But water does wonders, Where-
In the most obvious,
you know,
yes,
just because you see it there doesn't mean it's coming.
correct,
But, yeah, that just makes the mystery that much greater. Alright.
if, like I said, if any of you want to meet me out there, go out there, I will show you, just let me know.
I almost out there, and I saw they were working, doing something. Trying to-
As. Um,
The ice cream guy that tried to around town, he wanted to sit out, would be okay with that. He's got the vendor license, et cetera, sell them, yes, it's like a food truck or, take a bar at a pizza spot or.
I told him we had a problem with parking last time.
Yeah, that's my concern, it's parking.
Cause
So
he
you
was
did-
asking about when it was gonna open, and
Are you talking about Frozen Paradise?
no, like the. Stupid music that drives.
Yes, we know.
We did have Frozen Paradise out there a couple times, and there was some concern with. Parking. I haven't I'm not necessarily used to trying it. The other thing, when Frozen Paradise went out there, they worked with us, so they actually, before they left, they went in the pool. And helped us clean, because there was quite a bit of additional trash. So we just worked with them and we're like, hey, if you help us, if we're good with it, so I'm not.
It'll be back in Thursday.
Have them reach out to me.
All right.
And the other thing is, we do have
How do people you get it?
I gained from one of his trucks and I think because Lisa said he didn't have a permit.
I did not. Maddie did.
Maddie told me this, so I beat him to a pulp and then Lisa called me. It's like my phone, who just calls and I'm yelling at him. I did better, well, you got a record permit, so. you're gonna-
we do have a splash and flow
So
event
I did that back.
that I wouldn't want him there for.
Okay,
Cause Parks and Rec doing.
yeah, exactly, if it's a competitor gets started.
Yeah, we're doing free, root beer floats one day at the pool is like an appreciation and. So I wouldn't want him competing that.
Yeah.
Although I don't know who would do free versus paid, I guess, but.
Well, Thursday, if I see him, I told you, yeah. Cool, everybody,
In my country, I'm gonna go talk to him.
you went past my house like 7 times.
Local celebrity.
Yeah.
When you buy something, you would.
That garage sale signs, man, that garage sale sign. Okay, everyone else? No, we're good. All right,
Oh, hey, one of the things, it says something about your evaluation, or when are we gonna do this as an end? That coming up in.
I really need to get that out to you guys, actually. I'm hoping the June committee of the whole, we can have them, okay, that's what it was, already, and then talk about. I really need to get it to you guys, because that's coming up. I would really like to talk about goals and focus on that a little bit more. So I will be sending you guys the blank, I will get it out this week. My self-evaluation's a blank form, and then I will need somebody, or I can do it too, but typically it's one of you guys, which would be my preference, compile everything. I do have a Excel form you can use. Mike did it last year and he did his own thing. I don't really have any preference on how we do it. Glenn did the year before. So whoever, if you guys wanna do it
Yeah,
again or
we'll
somebody
figure it out
else.
for it.
But I'll send that information out and then, typically you guys, you'll all rate me for the newbies. And then I like comments, you're not required to provide comments, but it helps me so that if you scored me a 3, I know where I need to improve, or if I'm a 5, I know what I need to keep doing. And then, like I said, I'm good keeping all of the comments and we average out the scores. I don't have any concerns with that part, but the goals specifically, and I'll send you this year's evaluation as well. I can tell you I've not met all of them, but it is fairly substantial. Some of them are hard, or if I'm going to accomplish that goal, I'm going to have to give up something else. So I just want a little bit more clear direction from all of you guys, what those goals are. And I'm not necessarily opposed if you want to give me 10 goals, but then tell me what your top 3 are. So that I know I don't work on goal 9 when that was the thing you cared the least about.
So we'll be doing the evaluation first and have the committee of the whole discuss that.
Yeah, so I'm hoping you'll come to that committee of the whole, at least prepared with your goals at a bare minimum, so we can. Because I think that's where we'll spend a majority of the time focused on, because the average scores and the comments are what they
So
are.
you're gonna talk about it in public session, right, during a normal meeting, do you want to do that?
So after the works, my plan was that you guys would do it, we go to the committee of the whole to iron out the goals specifically. However, if you want to keep all of them and prioritize, or if you want to eliminate some, I have no preference on that. And then at the next regular council meeting, I would put it on the agenda for approval. And I do have the right to request closed session. I will tell you, I have not, and my preference is not to. I think that in my role that the residents should know how I am or am not doing, or areas that I need to improve on, or whatever feedback. Because I work for a 2-7 who ultimately work for the residents.
Didn't you also say that you thought you had conflicting goals?
I was gonna I think I do, yes, I was going to pull my evaluation and send it to you guys. Again, because I, off the top of my head, cannot recall, but
Well, that's where I would rather do it in a regular meeting where we can always make a formal motion, say, here's everybody's list, or here's everybody's goal listed. And then as a council, maybe we could say, what are our priorities? And we can do it officially. Again, that's not taking one individual, so that's taking the 7 of us coming to a consensus state. This helps us determine what we want to accomplish and give you some traction.
And having that discussion before we have a council meeting. Is what I'm hearing Jane say.
I have zero preference. Whatever you guys want to do, as far as the committee of the whole or council meeting, it's completely up to you guys. I am just asking that you guys consider honing in those goals a little bit so that I have more clear direction, because last year specifically, and probably the years before, but I think because I was still new and getting my feet under me, I still feel new sometimes. But last year, I really felt like the goals were, some of them unrealistic. And I felt like I don't remember exactly what I said, but I remember bringing up that I'm like, I cannot realistically achieve this. And I felt like right from the get-go of my evaluation last year, I was kind of set up to fail. And I don't want to do that, because if you guys want me to do something, like I want to consider that, and I want to be doing the things that you expect, but I don't want it to be detrimental to the work that I'm already doing, or to impact my family, work-life balance, or ideal balance. Because that's the, like.
So clarify, please. So you're saying you want to do what now? You're gonna give us the evaluation.
So- So what you guys have done in the past is you all provide your comments and all of you write goals, and some of you write 1, some of you write 5. But then you've adopted, or not adopted, approved my evaluation with all of those.
Right, so you want.
And I'm saying, I want all 7 of you to look at whatever goals are provided by you as individuals and say, do we all agree with each of these goals? And if there's 10, what, yes.
And then how could we, for the next year, the following year, say, yes, you've made them, or.
But I think in order to have that discussion regarding the agree/prioritize, I would think having a poll would be the better place to do that.
Yeah, but we can't formally make
We
us.
can't formally, but then we can formally make it the following meeting.
Right.
And that's where I'm going with it, like, what do you think about that?
That's how I envisioned it, was that you could have, you at that meeting could kind of discuss, instead of drawing it out in council.
Yeah.
And figure out what are your priorities, and let's say you prepare it, then you could go in and amend the total thing and say, these are top priorities, or just strike through the ones in committee of the whole that you propose to remove, if you did. And then at council, you would.
As long as that's not seen as a quote action, you know what I mean, like at this committee, that's my only.
Oh, it can't be an action.
Right, so,
But it can still be
you
a
know, it's kind of
discussion.
a straw poll, which is technically a, well, no, in a way. A
What
consensus even, right, I mean, at a committee meeting is sort of.
Well, yeah, but we kind of,
It's kind of what we did with putting together the ordinance. We all kind of gave our input. And then she's gonna go back and put down what we said, and then
Right, that doesn't mean you're bound by whatever happens at committee of the whole, you could still change it or.
because it's not like everyone's saying, well, if we do this, oh yeah, we have these 7 goals, that's what I'd be going for sure. You would be saying that, but we're saying here. What do you think? Sounds like there's kind of a consensus here, and then she tweaks it, and we go. Just what you said, Pat.
There may be some goals that are very, very similar and they can be consolidated.
Exactly. Okay, so we'll fill out, and then we'll go ahead and we'll meet, obviously at a regular meeting. Then we can go ahead and say, here's the list of goals. And then the committee to hold those goals. And come back, this should be accomplished. Yeah.
So then you're addressing your evaluation at 2
It'd be
board meetings, 2
Two meetings, whatever you guys want to do. I was going to do committee of the whole and then council, but I
Oh.
seriously,
Oh, I see.
whatever.
You guys might, here's
well, the compilation of my understanding would be the compilation of the rankings. And the compilation of the comments. That would be done outside the committee of the whole, and then it would just be accepted at the meeting. The goals but we would need to have all that stuff if we're gonna talk about goals at the committee of the whole. Because then we can't formulate any goals without everyone's
But it's hard to
information.
talk about that because you're technically having your evaluation of the committee of the whole before if you're having the official. Evaluation discussion.
What kind of things are coming up? Because as I'm hearing Mike, I'm envisioning an extremely long meeting. Potentially for all of
if
this.
we do all this, it's crazy long.
Yeah, so are there other things that we could shift around? Are there business things coming up that we could we move to a different meeting so that we can focus on this primarily?
But this should be I think having the discussion, just like we discussed the ordinance thing tonight, that needs to be throw it on the table, let's have talk about it. Shoot the brief stuff versus the.
Right, but we have to have we individually have to have for.
Right.
Everything we're.
Oh, yeah, there has to be
The
evaluation.
evaluation has to be completed. We have to complete it individually and bring it to here individually.
Mike is saying, you're not comfortable with that part.
My fear is because we compile and then the first step we come to a committee meeting, we're technically giving her evaluation at that committee meeting where it should be in a more formal setting.
So
If she can request a closed session, yes, but technically an open meeting is where we should. Again, it's not like a private entity,
If you did
unfortunately.
the.
So,
I have an idea, what if and this would push my evaluation out a little bit. I don't care, I don't know if that's important to you guys, so my evaluation is normally due in the month that I am hired, which is July. We could put on the regular council, my evaluation of all comments and no goals.
Right.
And then
I like
you
that.
guys the
Yep.
the evaluation
Yes.
minus goals, and then in
Okay,
July, we have
yes.
budget. So we can't, but the August committee of the whole, we could put goals specifically, you'll already have my evaluation scores. And hopefully already have your goals, and then we can
Thank you
talk
for 11
about,
months to accomplish or not accomplish whatever those goals are, and for us to be able to.
yes, and then I already have my evaluation, which you're. But you'll still have to do a second, like after the August committee, amend my evaluation to include those goals. What if
That
we
sounds
do
good.
that?
That's good.
So then my official amended evaluation probably won't go until either August 25th or September 8th. Which is a little bit late on the goals, but not that. If you guys are, I mean, I'll have
Oh,
these back.
Yeah, should we make a vote and ask you for a vote? No, just a consensus.
It's gotta be the one that takes on. I'm thinking, but I think that's how to figure it like that. Oh.
Obviously, one after her.
I'm all right.
You wanna make a donation before we make a decision? I'm not that sure. $10.
It is needed though, for you to be able to gauge, and for us to be able to gauge whether or not we've got these goals or.
Well, and the goals have to be
Achieved or
attainable.
It's, we just did it at media level, and it's like, yeah, we did it.
like, so I pulled it up, like one of, I actually have.
What was it?
One, maintain a reasonable work and family balance, and then continue to make work-life balance a priority. Those probably could have been combined, but how are you going to measure that?
That would be,
And there is probably ways, but I would like to know what those expectations are. So that if I do fail these, I can reasonably be like, well, yeah, you guys told me what that was, I just didn't do it, or not that I'm going to do that, but. But like I know, I mean, one just says same as last year.
I just put on mine, you know.
And it's actually abbreviated just SALY. SA, and that was a concern that I had, because if I do daily, which I do talk to the department heads. Minimum, I don't go more than 2 days, but I don't go there every day, because if I do that, then I have to give up something else, or I have to. Stay over to do those other things. You're okay with that? Things like that.
Just don't go over 120 hours a week.
I don't know that my kids or husband will be over that.
so that's the kind of stuff that we did, the SMART goals.
Yep.
Now, for the new folks that are on here as well, what if they don't have enough experience to answer one of the questions, what do you recommend?
So. I would recommend, and ultimately you guys are giving me the evaluation, but I would say that they should, if they don't feel comfortable that they've had enough time to evaluate me, I would say to leave not score me. And then whoever averages that out, instead of taking that specific number out of 7, I would just divide it by 5 or the 6 that responded. But I would say. Generally, like if you can score me, try to do that.
Please notate in the comments there why.
Yeah,
I
like-
feel like I haven't been here long enough to experience that.
Exactly,
Yeah.
versus leaving it totally.
I mean, the others,
And you're gonna email us your last year's evaluation?
I will, yes. Yeah, I'll email last year's my self-evaluation, and then I'll send a blank form for you as well. And the other thing, I have no problem with you guys asking the employees, for feedback. I mean, there is a chain of command, but they are the ones. No disrespect to you guys, that are here every day working with me and putting up with me. So ask them, does Danielle communicate with you, or I'm not opposed to that either. I don't want you to go start directing staff to do something. I think that is crossing the line and inappropriate, but I don't think it's when you're doing my evaluation on the line to say, to ask them questions or things that.
Me like running the leaf back across my yard, pick everything up, can't do that.
No, please don't do that.
Your basement window.
We go a lot quicker.
I'm sure it will.
8 AM tomorrow for some of us, right?
Yes.
What is tomorrow?
So then we have no June committee of the whole.
What do you say tomorrow?
Do we have anything from the stats?
Yeah.
I did actually, so they took out the portion that goes to the hydrants and they started using.
You missed the meeting, you get points. Been there before.
They attempted to raise. Raining so much.
Volunteers for us.
So I was gonna send a summary, because if you take, that doesn't add up to the amount. that you-